It started with something small, just a number, really. But that number, my credit score, would end up showing me exactly what kind of man I was dating. Before I get into it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for revenge stories and comment below where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing how many of us are awake, sharing stories like this late at night. Anyway, my name's Judy, I'm 22, and this all happened on one of those days that start normal but end up changing everything. I remember waking up to the sound of my old phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Mark, my boyfriend of a year and a half. He texted, "Morning, babe. Don't forget your appointment today." The appointment he was talking about wasn't for me, not really. It was for him. He'd been talking for weeks about how he wanted to get on track financially. He said he wanted to start building credit, maybe get a car loan or open a joint account, something to build a future together. I thought it sounded mature, like he was finally thinking ahead. But what I didn't realize was that I was the key to his plan, not his partner in it. Mark wasn't bad-looking. He had that kind of easy charm that made people like him right away, quick to smile, always had something clever to say. We met at a small-town diner just outside of Cincinnati, where I worked part-time while finishing community college. He came in every other morning for coffee, always ordering the same thing, black, 2 sugars, and a side of my attention. At first, I thought he was harmless. He'd compliment my handwriting on the receipts, tease me about the way I tied my apron, and sometimes leave little notes on napkins like, "Smile more. You've got a good one." He was older, 28, which made me feel flattered. I'd never dated someone with a real job, a car, and plans. Or at least, that's what I thought. A few months into dating, I noticed how Mark always seemed a little short on cash. He'd forget his wallet when we went out or tell me his paycheck got delayed. I didn't think much of it at first. We were both trying to get by. But then came the day he mentioned my credit score. We were sitting on the porch of his small apartment, sipping cheap wine, and he said, "You've got good credit, right? Like in the 700s or something?" I laughed because I thought it was a weird question. Yeah, I guess so," I said. "I mean, I've paid my stuff on time."
Why?
He smiled. That smooth, half-smirk that always made me nervous, like he was about to sell me something. "Just wondering," he said. "Because I was thinking maybe we could get a car together. It'd help both of us. We could share it, build credit, you know?" I didn't know much about loans or how that stuff worked, and he sounded so confident that I just nodded. That morning, the appointment he texted about was with a local bank. He said we were meeting to discuss financing options. He picked me up in his beat-up Honda, which rattled every time it hit 40 miles per hour, and we drove across town. I remember how his hand stayed on my knee the whole time, as if that was supposed to make me feel like this was our decision. Inside the bank, everything smelled like paper and carpet cleaner. The banker, a middle-aged man named Carl, greeted us with that overly polite tone people use when they're not sure who's really in charge. Mark did all the talking, how he wanted to apply for a small personal loan to start a business. He looked at me and said, "We'll be co-applicants." I blinked. "Wait, what?" He chuckled softly. "Oh, babe, don't look so scared. It's just paperwork. You've got the better score, so we'll qualify for a lower rate. I'll make the payments. It's just to get started." My stomach tightened. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But something about the way Carl's eyes flicked between us made me feel small, like he'd seen this before.
Still, I signed.
I wish I could say I didn't, but I did. We got approved that same afternoon. A $15,000 loan, supposedly to buy equipment for a mobile detailing business Mark had been talking about. I felt proud at first, like I was helping build something for our future. But as the day went on, the pride started to fade into a quiet unease. Mark spent the afternoon celebrating with me. He bought takeout with my card and said, "This is the start of something big." I remember the way he said it, eyes glowing, hands animated. But when I asked where he was going to keep the equipment, he said, "Oh, I'll figure that out later." That was the first red flag. By late evening, we were back at his apartment, and he was already on his phone scrolling through ads for used cars. He kept saying, We just need a good work vehicle, but the listings he showed me were all sports cars. Mustangs, Chargers, anything loud and fast. I asked, "You're not seriously thinking of buying one of those, right?" He laughed, leaned in, and kissed my forehead. "Don't worry, baby. I know what I'm doing." That night, he fell asleep on the couch, phone still glowing in his hand. I glanced at it, and, before I could stop myself, I peeked. There were messages between him and someone named Tara. The last one read, "Tara, did she sign it?" "Mark, yeah. She's got no idea." I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I scrolled up. There were more flirty messages, voice notes, inside jokes. He'd been seeing her for weeks. And apparently, the loan, my credit, my name, was part of some plan they'd cooked up together.
I didn't sleep that night.
I didn't even move. Just stared at his phone, then at him. This man I'd trusted, who'd spent months convincing me we were building a future together. By morning, I decided I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to think. I made coffee, left quietly, and drove to work like nothing happened. I kept my voice steady all day, even when he texted me saying he was running errands. I didn't reply. Instead, I called the bank. The woman on the phone was polite at first, until I asked if the funds from our joint loan had already been dispersed. She paused, then said yes. Deposited into Mark's account that morning. That was when my heart sank, and then hardened. I asked her to confirm something for me. If one co-applicant misuses the funds, does the other have any way to freeze the loan or file a fraud claim? Her tone shifted, professional but cautious. "Ma'am, if you believe the loan was obtained under false pretenses, you'll need to contact our fraud department. Would you like me to transfer you?" I looked out the window at the gray sky, took a deep breath, and said, "Yes, please do that." That's when everything started moving fast. I filed the report. I gave them screenshots, the messages, the proof that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. They said they'd open an investigation. I hung up and sat there, fingers shaking, feeling equal parts rage and disbelief. Later that evening, Mark showed up at my apartment like nothing was wrong. He brought a bouquet of wilted flowers from the grocery store and said, "Hey, babe, sorry I didn't text back. Busy day." I looked at him, really looked, and realized how different he seemed now that I wasn't blinded by affection. The same grin that once felt charming now looked slimy. I didn't mention the phone. I didn't mention the bank call. I just smiled and said, "Oh, that's okay. I had a busy day too." He smirked, kissed my cheek, and said, "See? You get it." Then he started talking about the car again, how he might drive to another city tomorrow to look at one. I nodded and said, "Maybe wait for a call from the bank first." He froze mid-sentence. "Wait, what do you mean?" I tilted my head slightly, pretending to be casual. "Oh, nothing. They just said they'd be reaching out. Routine stuff, you know. They might have a few questions." He tried to laugh it off, but I could see the sweat forming near his temple. That's when I knew I had him. He looked nervous, and I liked it that way. It was the first time since we'd met that I had control of the moment. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse him. I just let silence do the work. You'd be surprised how heavy silence can feel when someone's guilty. Mark cleared his throat and said, "They're not supposed to call you, right? I mean, I handled everything." I smiled, pretending to sip from the empty mug on the counter. "Oh, I'm sure they'll figure it out. Banks are good at that." He nodded too quickly, then reached for his keys. "Anyway, I gotta head out for a bit. I'll call you later, okay?" I just said, "Sure, Mark," and watched him leave. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly. My hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore, from adrenaline. I wasn't going to be another girl crying over a guy who used her. Not today. I spent the next hour sitting at my tiny kitchen table, scrolling through everything I had, texts, screenshots, his emails. I took photos of all of them, saving them to a cloud folder I named Documentation. It felt strange, being this calm while planning something that would ruin someone's day. But the more I thought about what he did, the easier it became. My phone buzzed. It was a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Hello, is this Judy Carter?" A professional voice asked. "Yes," I said, sitting up straighter. "This is Lisa from the bank's fraud department. I understand you filed a report earlier today regarding a joint loan with Mark Evans." "Yeah," I said. "That's right." Lisa's tone softened. "I'm just calling to confirm a few details and let you know that we've placed a temporary hold on the account. No further withdrawals can be made until the investigation is complete." I closed my eyes for a second. Relief flooded through me. "Thank you," I whispered. She continued, "We'll need documentation of any communication between you and Mr. Evans that suggests the loan wasn't used for its intended purpose. Do you have that available?" I glanced at my laptop. "Yes, ma'am. All of it." When we hung up, I realized how different my apartment felt now. Same walls, same furniture, but quieter somehow, like I'd finally shut a door I should have closed months ago. A few minutes later, my phone lit up again. This time it was him. "Mark, what did you tell the bank?" "They just froze my account." They called me, said they needed to verify some things." I just told the truth. I watched the little typing dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. "Mark, you're overreacting." "I was gonna pay it back." You said it was for a business. You bought a car." A pause. "Then, Mark, you went through my phone?" That made me laugh out loud. Out of everything he could have said, that's what he chose.
No apology. No explanation.
Just that fake outrage menus when they've been caught. I didn't reply. I just left it on read. By late afternoon, I'd finished compiling everything, texts, screenshots, even the bank statement he'd accidentally left open once. I sent it all to Lisa in an email labeled evidence. I didn't write a long message. Just, "Hi Lisa, here's everything you asked for. Let me know if you need more. Judy." Then I sat back, staring at the send confirmation. It felt satisfying, like breathing clean air after being stuck in a smoky room for too long. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang again. I recognized the number this time. It was the same bank, but a different voice. A man introduced himself as Thomas, saying he was the loan officer handling the investigation. He said, "We've contacted Mr. Evans regarding the discrepancies in the loan application and spending activity." He seemed unaware that we'd be freezing his funds. "Unaware?" I repeated. "He's the one who withdrew it." Thomas sighed. "Yes, we noticed that. However, the funds haven't been fully cleared. The car purchase he attempted earlier today has been placed on hold, pending verification." That's when I smiled. Pending verification. That meant he hadn't gotten what he wanted yet. Thomas continued, "If we determine that you were misled into co-signing under false pretenses, the bank will likely remove your name from liability. You'll receive official notice soon." I thanked him about 4 times before hanging up. My chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. But it wasn't over, not yet. Around 7:30, Mark came storming back into my apartment like he owned the place. He didn't even knock. His face was red, jaw tight, eyes darting. "What did you do?" he barked. "They froze my account. The dealership canceled my deal." I leaned against the counter, calm. "I told you they called." I told them the truth. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You think this is funny? You ruined everything." I stared at him, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "You used me, Mark. You used my name, my credit, and my trust. You lied about everything." He scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "Oh, come on. It's not like you lost anything. It's just a loan. You said you wanted to build credit, right?" That line, "you said you wanted to build credit," burned into my memory. He made it sound like I had begged him for this, like it was somehow my fault. I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eyes. "You know, Mark, the bank seemed really interested in hearing about the messages between you and Tara." He froze. "What did you say?" "I didn't have to say much," I replied. "They saw the screenshots." He stared at me, jaw clenched, then turned toward the door. "You're crazy," he muttered. "You'll regret this." "I already did," I said softly. He slammed the door on his way out. I just stood there for a minute, letting the quiet settle again. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, replaced by a strange calm, the kind you get when you've finally done what needed to be done. I checked my phone one last time before heading to bed. No texts. No calls. Just silence. But I knew tomorrow would bring something, fallout, maybe closure, maybe both. And as I turned off the lights, I whispered to myself, he didn't expect that bank call. But this isn't over yet. I sat there, staring at the email until the screen dimmed. My fingers hovered over the mouse, itching to delete it, to wipe away every reminder of him, but I stopped myself. My chest was tight, but my head was finally starting to clear. He used me. That much was obvious. But somewhere in all that hurt, I felt something sharper, a sense of insult. He didn't just break my heart. He treated me like I was stupid, disposable, like a step on his way to something better. And if there's one thing I've learned from life, from years of paying bills, managing houses, and seeing people's true colors, it's that people like Mark never expect consequences. They think women like me just cry, move on, and stay quiet. Not this time. I opened my online banking, scrolled through my recent transactions, and started tracing the timeline. There it was, his payment request for the down payment. $8,200. I remembered the night he'd asked for it, the way he'd said it was our future money. I remembered laughing and telling him, "You better not run off with my good credit." He'd smiled and said, "You know I never could." The memory made my stomach twist. I copied every single transaction, exported the PDFs, and saved them neatly into a folder. Then I pulled up our text messages and took screenshots of everything, the ones where he'd mentioned the apartment, the loan, the promises. I didn't know exactly what I'd do with it yet, but my instinct told me to collect everything. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was him. "Mark. Hey babe. You good?" I stared at the screen for a long second.
Me. Yeah.
"Just tired." "You?" "Mark. Work's killing me." "You home?" "Me. Yep." "Why?" "Mark. Just thinking about you." "Gotta run though." "Lunch meeting." I almost laughed. Lunch meeting.
Right.
He always had meetings, especially when he was with her. I didn't reply. Instead, I called my bank. After a few minutes of hold music, a woman with a friendly voice came on. "Hi, this is Lisa with customer support. How can I help you today?" "Hi, Lisa," I said, trying to sound calm. "I just wanted to ask something about a joint loan application. I think my name might have been used without my full consent." There was a pause. "Okay, let's take a look." She asked for some details, my name, date of birth, social security digits. A few clicks later, she said something that made my pulse spike. Yes, I see your name linked to a vehicle loan application from last month. Do you recognize that?" My throat went dry. "Vehicle loan?"
Yes.
"A new model SUV. It looks like the application lists you as a cosigner." My heart pounded so loud, I could hear it echo in my ears. He hadn't just borrowed money. He'd signed me into debt. "Can you tell me the applicant's name?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose that without authorization," she said carefully. "But since your name is on the form, you can visit your local branch to review it. Would you like to set an appointment?" "Yes," I said, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. "Yes, please." I scheduled the meeting for 3 p.m. When I hung up, I sat in silence. For a minute, I didn't move. It felt like the world was holding its breath. Then I stood up. Slowly, deliberately. I went to my bedroom, pulled open my closet, and stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror. My face looked tired, drawn, but beneath the exhaustion, there was steel. "You really thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you?" I whispered to my reflection. The truth was, I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted him to understand, to feel the same humiliation, the same shock that I felt. By the time I grabbed my keys and stepped outside, the sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the driveway. I slid into my car and drove toward the bank. The entire way there, I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd say it. Inside, the air conditioning was cold and sharp. A young teller led me to a private office where a woman in her 50s sat with a clipboard. Her badge read, Elaine, Senior Loan Officer. Judy, right? She said kindly. Come on in, have a seat. I sat, folding my hands in my lap. I understand you're here about a loan application?
Yes.
I believe my name was used without permission. She nodded, tapping on her keyboard. All right, let's see. Yes, here we are. The cosigner fields include your information, address, credit score, and signature. Do you recognize this? She turned the monitor toward me. My breath caught. There it was. My name, my signature, perfectly forged. Can I get a copy of that? I asked, keeping my voice even. Of course, she said. Would you like us to flag this for potential fraud? I hesitated, just for a second, then nodded.
Yes.
Please. When I walked out of the bank that afternoon, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I sat in my car, staring through the windshield at the bright blue sky, and let the moment settle in. Mark had no idea, but soon he would. When I got home, the house felt heavier. Not because of the air, but because of everything I now knew. It's strange how truth changes the way a room feels. The same couch, the same coffee cup, but suddenly everything feels smaller. Like the air itself is watching. I set my purse down on the counter and took a deep breath. The papers from the bank were still warm from the printer, and the sight of my name forged across that document made my skin crawl. He'd really done it. He'd used me, my trust, my kindness, my credit score. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. If Mark thought I was just going to let this slide, he was about to learn who I really was. I logged into our shared Google Drive, the one he thought I'd forgotten existed. He used it mostly for work documents and photos, but I knew he'd stored personal stuff there too. I typed in the password he'd once proudly told me, Captain Mark 22. Predictable. And just like that, I was in. The folders opened like a map of his double life. There were receipts from expensive dinners I hadn't been to, travel confirmations, and even a folder titled Future Home Plans. Inside it were listings for houses, big ones, all in her city, not mine. Then I found an email draft. It was unsent, but the words made me grip the edge of the desk. Hey babe, I'll pay off Judy's card soon. Just need to keep her calm a little longer. She's sweet, but kinda clingy. Once the loan clears, I'm all yours. I stared at the screen, frozen. Kinda clingy. That's what I was to him, a walking FICO score with feelings too inconvenient to factor in. For a minute, I just sat there, the screen glowing against my face, my mind spinning. I could expose him right now, send that email to his work, to her, to his family. But something stopped me. That would make it messy, loud, public. And I didn't want drama. I wanted precision. My eyes landed on the business card from the bank. Elaine, Senior Loan Officer. I pulled out my phone and dialed.
Elena.
It's Judy again, I said, keeping my voice calm. I was wondering, if there's fraudulent activity on a joint loan, what happens to the other party? Well, she said thoughtfully, once the fraud report is filed, the primary applicant is flagged. Their access to future loans and credit approvals can be temporarily frozen pending investigation. And the co-signer? They're cleared once the signature is verified as forged. It can take a few days, but we'll make sure your credit isn't affected. Thank you, I said softly. After I hung up, I started typing. My email was short and polite. Hi Elaine, thank you for your help today. I'd like to proceed with the formal fraud report. Attached are screenshots of the forged signature and all related communications. Please let me know once the investigation begins. Then I attached the files, clicked send, and sat back. It was 5:15 p.m. when I got a call from Mark. Hey babe, he said, his voice light and casual. Just got off work. You home? Yeah, I said. Why? Thought I'd stop by. Got some dinner for us. My heart thudded once, hard. but my tone stayed even.
Sure.
Come by. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes you don't have to chase revenge. You just open the door and let it walk right in. 20 minutes later, I heard his car pull up. I stayed seated, my computer still open on the table. The forged document sat in a neat little pile beside my coffee mug. He walked in like nothing had happened, that same easy smile, a brown paper bag in his hands. Chinese, he said cheerfully. Your favorite. Thanks, I said, not looking up right away. He put the bag down and leaned against the counter. You okay? You've been quiet lately. Just thinking, I said.
About what?
I turned my laptop toward him. About this. He froze when he saw the loan form on the screen. The color drained from his face. Mark, I said, keeping my tone calm. Do you want to tell me why my name is on a car loan for an SUV I've never even seen? He blinked, his mouth half open, as if the words hadn't quite registered.
What?
What are you talking about? I turned the screen a little closer to him.
Don't play dumb, Mark.
I just came from the bank. They showed me the loan application. My name, my social, my signature. You forged it. His face twitched, just for a second. Then he forced a laugh. Babe, come on. That must be some kind of mix-up. You know how banks screw things up sometimes. Elaine printed me the paperwork. I interrupted softly. I saw your signature too. The silence that followed was thick. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw clenched. Finally, he muttered, Okay, look, maybe I just added your name because they said I needed a co-signer. It's not a big deal, Judy. I was going to tell you. Not a big deal? I said, my voice breaking for the first time. You forged my signature on a loan for a car I didn't even know about. He raised his hands, palms out, that fake calm tone slipping in again. Judy, calm down. You're overreacting. I did it for us. I thought we'd be together long term, so what difference does it make? I stood slowly. Together long term? You've been seeing someone else, Mark. I found the emails. That was when his mask cracked. His eyes darted to the computer, then back at me. You went through my stuff? Your shared drive, I said. You used my name, my money, my credit, and now you want to talk about privacy? He took a small step closer. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I'll fix it, okay? I'll refinance. I'll get your name off. I already called the bank, I said, cutting him off. They've flagged it as fraud. He froze. The words hit him like cold water. You what? They're opening an investigation. You'll be hearing from them soon. His voice rose a little. Do you realize what that means for me? My job checks my credit every year. This could. Oh, now you're worried about your credit. I said, almost laughing.
Funny.
You didn't seem so concerned when you used mine. He started pacing, running a hand through his hair. You could have just talked to me first, Judy. You didn't have to go behind my back. Behind your back? I repeated, stunned. You forged my signature and stole my identity, and somehow I'm the one going behind your back. He turned on me then, his voice sharp. You're making this worse for yourself, you know that? If this becomes official fraud, they'll dig into both of us. They'll see your name everywhere. They'll think you weren't on it. I folded my arms, my heart pounding but steady. I'm not scared, Mark. I've got every message, every receipt, every date. The truth is on my side. He stared at me for a long moment, his chest rising and falling. Then he gave a bitter little laugh. You're not the person I thought you were. No, I said quietly. I'm not the person you thought you could use. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft crinkle of the takeout bag between us. Finally, he picked up his keys. You just ruined my life, Judy. No, I said. You did that yourself. He left without another word. I waited until the sound of his car faded down the street, then I locked the door and sat down at the table again. My hands were trembling slightly, but not from fear, from release. I stared at the quiet house around me. Everything looked the same pictures on the wall, the same light filtering through the blinds, but I felt completely different. It was strange, really. Revenge didn't feel like fire or fury. It felt like peace. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the bank. "Thank you for your report, Judy. The investigation has been opened. You'll receive a follow-up call shortly to confirm the details." I exhaled slowly. It wasn't about payback anymore. It was about closure. About making sure that people like Mark didn't get away with pretending love was a loan they could take out and never repay. As the sky darkened outside, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window. The quiet of the evening felt different now, not heavy, but cleansing. I didn't know what the bank's next step would be. I didn't even care if the police got involved. All I knew was that, for the first time in a long while, I had stood up for myself. Not loudly, not violently, but clearly. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably panicking, scrambling to call the bank, trying to talk his way out of it. I pictured his face when they told him about the fraud report, when they froze his access, when his shiny SUV suddenly wasn't his anymore. That image was enough. I took a sip of wine and smiled faintly. Let the bank call begin. The first call came just as I was rinsing my wine glass. The phone buzzed on the counter, and for a second I thought it was a spam number, until I recognized the area code. It was the bank. I wiped my hands and picked up. "Hello." "Hi, is this Judy?" The woman's voice was polite but firm, the tone of someone who delivers news for a living. "This is Elaine from First State Bank. I wanted to let you know we've contacted the primary applicant regarding the vehicle loan you flagged earlier." My pulse quickened. "Okay, we've suspended all activity on the account pending investigation," she continued. "There's been an attempt to modify payment details from the other party. We declined it. The fraud department will be in touch to verify your information shortly." I swallowed.
Thank you, Elaine.
"I really appreciate your help." As soon as I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. Somewhere, Mark had just gotten that same notification, and he would know exactly who caused it. My phone buzzed again. "Mark, what the hell did you do?" I didn't respond. Another message popped up. "Mark, they froze my account. You couldn't just talk to me first?" Then, "Mark, I'm coming over." I set the phone down and walked to the door, sliding the deadbolt into place. Not tonight. For a few minutes, silence. Then a knock. Hard, angry. I didn't move. He knocked again, louder this time. "Judy, open the door." I stepped back, heart pounding, but my voice stayed steady. "Leave, Mark." "Judy, come on.
We can fix this."
You're making a mistake." "No," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. "I'm fixin' yours." He stood there for a while, long enough that I could hear him pacing outside. Then came the sound of footsteps retreating down the path, the car door slamming, and the engine roaring off. When I was sure he was gone, I sat down again. My body was tense, but inside, there was this strange calm. It wasn't joy, exactly, more like relief mixed with disbelief that I'd actually done it. The rest of the night unfolded quietly. I made tea, turned on some soft music, and tried to let my thoughts settle. But every so often my mind flashed to that moment at the bank, the signature, his face when he saw it, the emails he never sent. I wondered what his girlfriend would think if she saw them. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I opened my laptop. I found her name easily enough. It was right there in the email drafts. I didn't need to dig deep. I didn't even have to say much. Just a screenshot or two and a single line. I stared at the message box for a long time, then started typing.
"Hi.
You don't know me, but I think you should see this before you make any long-term plans with Mark." Then I attached the screenshots and hit send.
No threats. No insults.
Just the truth. When I closed the laptop, my phone buzzed again. Another number, not Mark's this time. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello." "Hi. This is Thomas from First State Bank's fraud department," the voice said. "I just wanted to verify a few details from your earlier report." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Of course." He asked about dates, amounts, consent. I answered everything clearly. At the end of the call, he said, "Thanks for confirming, Ms. Larson. We'll be contacting the applicant next. Once his statement is reviewed, you'll get a written notice of resolution within 3 business days." "Thank you," I said softly. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long while. Outside, the sky had turned deep blue, streetlights flickering on one by one. It was strange how the world could look so calm while something so messy unraveled beneath it. Then my phone buzzed again, one last message from Mark. "Mark, you'll regret this. You have no idea what you've started." I looked at the text for a long moment. Then, slowly, I deleted it. He could rage all he wanted. But for the first time, the control wasn't his anymore. I sat on the couch, the light from the TV flickering softly across the room, though I wasn't really watching. My mind was somewhere between exhaustion and clarity. It was strange. I had always thought that revenge would feel hot, like anger or victory. But instead, it felt cool.
Steady.
I checked the time. 9:12 p.m. It had been just over an hour since the bank's call. The house was still. Outside, a light rain began to fall, tapping softly against the windows. The kind of quiet rain that made everything sound like memory. Then came the vibration of my phone. Another message, but this time from an unknown number. "Ms. Larson, this is Officer Raymond with the local police department. We've received a notice of potential identity fraud linked to a report filed by First State Bank. Would you be available to verify details over the phone tonight?" For a moment, I froze. The word police had a weight to it. Even when you're innocent, it makes your heart skip. But I took a deep breath and replied, "Yes, I'm available." A few minutes later, the phone rang. "Good evening, Ms. Larson," a man said, his tone professional but kind. "This is Officer Raymond. I'm following up regarding a potential fraudulent loan under your name. I just need to confirm a few details for our preliminary file." I walked into the kitchen, pacing slowly as I spoke. I explained everything: how I'd trusted Mark, how I'd discovered the forged signature, how I'd already spoken with the bank earlier. He listened without interrupting, only asking small clarifying questions here and there. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Well," he said finally, "it sounds like you did everything right. The bank's already flagged it, which helps. I'll submit this as a confirmed identity fraud case. You'll get an email confirmation by morning." "Will he?" I hesitated. "Will he get in trouble?" "That depends," the officer said carefully. "If the evidence shows intent and falsification, which, from what you've described, it likely will, there'll be a financial fraud charge. It's a civil matter first, but it can escalate if he contests it." "I see. I'm sorry you had to deal with this, ma'am. It happens more than you'd think. You're not alone." That last part, "you're not alone," hit me harder than I expected. For weeks, I'd felt exactly that. Used, fooled, small. But now, for the first time, I didn't. After I hung up, I walked to the window and watched the rain slide down the glass. Streetlights glowed soft and golden through the mist. Somewhere out there, Mark was sitting with his phone, maybe reading the same notification, maybe realizing that his little plan had collapsed. I didn't need to imagine the look on his face. I'd already seen it earlier when he realized I knew. That was enough. My phone buzzed again, this time an email from the fraud department. "Dear Ms. Larson, we've confirmed the authenticity of your signature sample. Your credit record remains unaffected. The application under dispute has been suspended pending investigation. You are not liable for any associated debt." I read it twice, just to let it sink in. The relief came slow, not all at once, but like warmth returning to frozen fingers. I sat back down and looked around the room, at the framed pictures, the lamp I'd picked out, the half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. It all felt like mine again. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't even about the fraud. It was about the way he'd made me doubt myself, made me think I was naive, foolish for believing. But the truth was, trust isn't foolish. It's human. And using it against someone? That's the real crime. The phone rang again, one last time that night. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me to answer. "Hello."
Judy?
The voice was a woman's, hesitant, quiet. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I should be calling, but I'm the person Mark's been seeing. I stayed silent. I just wanted to say thank you, she said softly, for sending me those screenshots. I had no idea. He told me you were crazy, that you'd made things up. But I checked the dates, the messages. I'm sorry he did this to you. I really am. Her voice trembled, but there was sincerity there, the kind that only comes from someone who's also been lied to. It's okay, I said finally. You didn't do anything wrong. There was a small pause. Then she said, he's gone now, packed a bag, and left. Said he needed to fix a mistake. I just thought you should know. When the call ended, I sat in silence again. The house felt lighter this time, as if some heavy, invisible fog had finally lifted. I didn't smile, not exactly, but a calmness settled in, deep and certain. Justice didn't always come with handcuffs or courtroom scenes. Sometimes it came with a phone call and quiet closure. I stood, turned off the lights, and let the sound of the rain carry me through the night. The morning sunlight crept through the blinds, soft and pale after a night of rain. I woke earlier than usual, the kind of early that comes when your mind finally stops racing. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel that familiar weight pressing on my chest. I brewed a cup of coffee and sat by the window, the steam curling upward like the last remnants of everything I'd let go of. The neighborhood looked washed clean, driveways glistening, leaves still dripping from the storm. My phone buzzed again, not from Mark, not from chaos, but from the same unknown number as last night. A text this time. Ms. Larson, this is Officer Raymond. Just wanted to confirm that your case has been formally logged. You'll receive documentation within 48 hours. You did the right thing. I stared at the message for a moment. You did the right thing. Funny how a few words could mean so much. For months, I'd second-guessed everything, my choices, my instincts, my worth. But now, sitting there with coffee in hand, I realized that doing the right thing didn't always mean staying quiet or polite. Sometimes it meant standing up, even if your voice shook while doing it. I opened my laptop and began typing an email, one I'd been drafting in my head all night. To HR@crestfieldfinance.com. Subject: Re. Documentation of harassment and fraudulent activity by Mark Allen. Good morning. Please find attached the evidence previously submitted, along with confirmation from law enforcement that the fraudulent loan under my name has been suspended. I understand my employment was terminated under questionable circumstances, and I'd like to formally request a review by corporate compliance. Best regards, Judy Larson. I attached the screenshots, the bank statement, the officer's confirmation, and, with steady fingers, clicked send. I didn't know what would come of it. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But it didn't matter anymore. I'd taken back my voice, and that was something no one could fire me for. Around 10, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped, part of me bracing for something unexpected again. But when I opened the door, it was just a delivery man holding a white envelope. Ms. Larson, he asked. Yes. Certified mail. Signature required. I signed, thanked him, and closed the door. Inside the envelope was a single-page letter, the official statement from the bank. This letter confirms that Ms. Judy Larson has been fully cleared of liability. The fraudulent activity under her name has been reported for criminal review. Her credit remains intact. At the bottom was a small handwritten note from the manager I'd spoken to yesterday. For what it's worth, you handled this with more grace than most. Take care of yourself. I smiled just a little. Then I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer, right beside an old photograph of my parents. My father used to say, people show you who they are when they think you can't do anything about it.
He'd been right.
By noon, the sun had broken through the clouds. I decided to go for a walk. No destination, just a need to move. The air smelled of wet earth and beginnings. As I passed the coffee shop near the office building where I used to work, I noticed two women from HR sitting inside. They looked up, recognized me, and waved hesitantly. I waved back. Not out of bitterness, but closure. I wasn't the same woman who had cried in her car 3 weeks ago after being told she was no longer a good fit. I was the woman who'd faced her fear and turned it into truth. When I got home, I noticed an email waiting for me. The subject line read, Corporate Review. Immediate action pending. I clicked it open. Dear Ms. Larson, we've received your submission and supporting evidence. The information presented warrants immediate review. Effective today, Mr. Mark Allen has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. We appreciate your courage in bringing this to our attention. Sincerely, Corporate Ethics Division. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and exhaled. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It was peace, plain and simple. Later that evening, as the sky turned amber and quiet, I stood on my balcony, watching cars pass below. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably realizing that everything he'd built on lies had finally crumbled. But I didn't need to see it. I didn't need to hear an apology or a confession. The silence was enough. Because in that silence, I found something I'd lost long before him. Myself. By the time night came again, the house felt still, not empty, but peaceful. It's strange how silence changes when your heart finally stops waiting for the next bad thing to happen. I sat in my kitchen with the last of my coffee, replaying the day like an old film reel. The emails, the phone calls, the letter, everything had unfolded so fast, yet it felt like I'd been walking toward this moment for years. When I was younger, I used to think love meant giving without question, helping someone even when it hurt you. Maybe that's why people like Mark find women like me so easily. We want to believe the best in others. We think kindness will be returned in kind. But that night, I realized something I wish I'd learned sooner. Love without respect isn't love. It's control disguised as affection. As I sat there, my phone lit up again, another message from an unknown number. This time it wasn't the officer or HR. It was short, no punctuation, no emotion. You ruined my life. Hope you're happy. I looked at it for a long while, the way you look at an old scar. And then, without replying, I deleted it. Because I wasn't going to let him live rent-free in my mind anymore. He ruined his own life, not me. I opened my window and let the cool night air drift in. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn echoed, soft, low, lonely. And for a second, I thought about the girl I used to be before all of this began. The one who would have cried over that message, who would have felt guilt she didn't deserve.
She was gone now.
In her place stood a woman who'd survived something painful and come out with both feet on solid ground. Not perfect, not untouched, but wiser. If you've made it this far, I want you to hear me when I say this, because maybe you've been there too. Maybe someone used you, lied to you, made you feel small for trusting them. Maybe they made you think you were crazy for noticing their deceit. You're not crazy. And you're not weak for caring. What matters is what you do after. I didn't burn his house down. I didn't scream or post his name online. I just told the truth, calmly, quietly, and let the truth do the burning for me. That's something my mother used to say before she passed. Don't chase revenge, Judy, she'd tell me. Just let the truth catch up. And tonight it finally did. I stood, walked to the mirror near the front door, and caught my reflection. My hair was messy, my eyes a little tired, but there was something new there, something steady. I realized I didn't need anyone else's validation to feel worthy anymore. Mark had taken advantage of my good nature, my clean credit, my trust. But in the end, I still had everything that mattered. My integrity, my peace, and a story worth telling. I guess that's why I decided to share this. Because somewhere out there, another woman is sitting at her kitchen table right now, staring at her phone, wondering if she'll ever stop feeling used or foolish. Maybe she's scared to speak up. Maybe she's afraid no one will believe her. To her, and maybe to you, I just want to say this. Speak. You don't have to scream. You don't have to fight dirty. Just speak your truth and let it stand. People like Mark build their lives on silence, on the hope that you'll stay quiet forever. Don't. The next day, I woke up early, opened my window again, and felt the sunlight on my face. The world hadn't changed overnight, but I had. My name is Judy, and this was my story. If you've been through something like this, if someone's ever used your kindness as a stepping stone, you're not alone. So before you go, make sure to subscribe to her revenge stories and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one because your stories matter too. Every heartbreak, every comeback, every quiet revenge. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's peace.